leaving me flat on that one. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here at my alma mater. I feel honored to be here and to be part of such a special day in the lives of some of you Garrison girls. Congratulations on your accomplishments. May they be just the beginning. And a quick shout out to Peter O'Neill, affectionately known by me as the Big O. You were and continue to be one of the biggest cheerleaders of girls' education and have played a sizable role in the success of so many of us. I feel lucky to have been a part of your early years at Garrison. When I was approached to speak to all of you today, I was honored at the opportunity. Soon after accepting, my emotions changed slightly into something that can only be described as apprehension. What the heck do I have to talk to you all about? I'm still in my training. Technically, at the age of 33, I'm still a student. And minus a few short hiatuses from my training, I have been a student or trainee for 28 years. So, despite being a bit older than you ladies, in fact, I guess I'm technically twice your age, we are really not that different. So I guess the easiest thing to do is start by telling you a little about myself. I started at Garrison when I was 4, and I was a lifer. My older sister Kate was 4 years ahead of me, so short of a brief overlap when she was in the 5th grade and I the 1st, we didn't really cross paths too often. During my early years at Garrison, my mom enrolled me in violin lessons to try to bring a little structure to my life. I continued playing throughout my time here until I broke my wrist kickboxing as a senior. That was the official end of my music career. I was not much of an athlete. I played field hockey, soccer, lacrosse, none of them very well. And then in my sophomore year, I decided I was sick of doing all the running and joined the polo team. I dabbled in theater, playing minor roles in Grease and Annie, including serving as the assistant to President Roosevelt, played by Mr. O'Neill. My most memorable moment on stage came when I got a bit excited and pushed him and his wheelchair off stage much too prematurely. Oops. That was the end of my acting career. I was a ragged robin and sang in the chorus. I was and still am a light. Needless to say, I kept myself busy, and I took advantage of a lot of what Garrison had to offer. In the beautiful and protected environment of GFS, I tried all sorts of new things, made great friends, took risks, and began to figure out who I was. I had amazingly supportive teachers, some of whom are still here today, who pushed me to learn more and taught me how to express myself. They taught me to say what I think, regardless of whether it's the popular answer, a skill that my husband would probably prefer I didn't possess. I had announced at the age of 5 that I was going to be a doctor. I had initially dabbled with career paths that included, but are not limited to, a hairdresser, a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, and a tennis instructor. But was over this phase by the time I hit kindergarten. My parents had no idea where this proclamation came from. There are no doctors in our family. We don't know any doctors, really. And this was long before the days of shows like ER, Grey's Anatomy, and Scrubs. In the end, it was a good fit for me. I always loved biology and the pathophysiology of diseases. I like helping people. I enjoy the human interaction that comes with being a doctor. I like working as a team with our nurses, OR techs, respiratory therapists, and other staff to provide the best care possible for each patient. I enjoy working with and teaching the more junior residents and medical students, a passion that comes from having been blessed with great teachers throughout my education. And I like the complex problem solving that comes from trying to figure out what is wrong with the patient and then how to fix it. So when I made this announcement that I was going to be a doctor, I think it made sense to those who knew me best, my family, my teachers, my friends, and I never really faltered from this path over the course of the next 28 years. I did, however, take some detours along the way. Some of these were intentional, others were a bit more forced. All of them have shaped who I am and have made me a better doctor, friend, wife, and mother. My first detour took place soon after graduation. I was spending my summer in Maine working in an all-boys camp. To be honest, I needed a break from the all-girls environment and went to the other extreme. I received a call that I had been admitted to Brown off the wait list, but there was not to be a spot for me until January. I was offered a job by my summer program to stick around through the fall and work at their experiential education school. I lived in a log cabin with minimal heat and occasional running water, hosting 15 girls each week from one of Maine's public school districts, some of the poorest in the country. I spent my days wearing overalls, wool sweaters, and hiking boots, teaching a curriculum based on enhancing communication skills and improving self-confidence as a means of trying to help these kids avoid drugs and alcohol. After years of privilege and opportunity at Garrison, I worked with kids who would arrive for a week with only the clothes on their back, barely a sleeping bag, to keep them warm. I gained a perspective on how truly blessed I was to have grown up in a stable home with so many people cheering me on to succeed. I arrived at college in January refreshed and ready to jump back into my education. I had completed 5 semesters at Brown when I started to veer off on my second detour. I spent a semester away from college working in a basic science lab at Johns Hopkins. I worked with some wonderful people and spent my days examining the microscopic cochlea, also known as part of the inner ear, of deaf cats to try to improve our treatment of deaf children. I helped write a few papers and determined that, for the most part, basic science research was probably not going to be my thing. But you never know unless you try, right? The following spring, I continued my time away from college by spending a semester living in Kenya. I lived in Nairobi as well as some of the surrounding towns. I was hosted by families in the city as well as small dirt huts in the villages. At one point, I shared a bed with a chicken, which I do not recommend. I played with children in Kibera, one of the largest slums in Africa, and helped provide them with HIV education. I studied the Kenyan healthcare system using my research as the basis of my college thesis upon my return to Brown, and I learned Swahili. By the time I left, I was pretty close to fluent. I could yell at the cab drivers like a local and haggle with the ladies in the market. I also had the opportunity to spend 2 weeks working on an Operation Smile mission in a small town called Nakuru. We performed over 100 operations on children and adults with cleft palates, hernias, lumps and bumps, congenital abnormalities, and burns. It was truly an eye-opening experience, one which I hope to be able to participate in again once I complete my own training. After finishing up at Brown, I spent one last year outside the field of medicine. I just felt that I needed to see what it was like to work at a desk job and prove that it wasn't for me. I worked for the Small Business Administration in Washington, D.C. in the director's office. I worked with interesting people on exciting projects, but at the same time, I had a hard time sitting at a desk all day and quickly realized about 6 months in that this was not for me. So my stint with the government was cut short and I quit my job and spent the next several months enjoying some free time before medical school started. My dad was recently retired and he and I headed to the land of retirees, Florida. I played tennis, worked on my tan, enjoyed good food, read some books, and spent time with great people. This experience taught me that I am most definitely looking forward to retirement. But for now, I still have quite a bit of work to do. After years working towards a career in medicine, I was excited to start at Michigan State's College of Human Medicine in the fall of 2003. I thought that this would be the end of my detours. I was wrong. By day 2, I was already headed off the path towards the Humane Society to find myself a 4-legged companion. I was lonely. I knew no one in Michigan and had decided, against my mother's furious begging, that I was going to get a dog. I brought Miller, an 8-month-old black lab, home on day 4 of medical school, and he became my first patient. Unfortunately, he needed a psychiatrist, which was not my area of specialty. He had been abused and neglected for the first part of his life, and despite being full of love, suffered from horrible separation anxiety. In our first few months together, he ate a hole in my wall-to-wall carpeting, destroyed a half-dozen crates, ripped my goose-down duvet to shreds, put a hole in my parents' dining room wall, sorry guys, and broke numerous screen doors. I spent hours working with him, teaching him to trust that if I left for class, I would always come back. And after more than 2 years of intense therapy and some anti-anxiety drugs, he finally started to realize that I would never leave him. He has become my most loyal companion and has seen me through 10 years of medical training. I had chosen MSU because of its great primary care program, as I always thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. I pushed through the first 2 years of medical school, which took place predominantly in a lecture hall, and arrived in the clinical years prepared to knock the socks off everyone in the children's hospital. And then I spent 2 months on my surgery rotation and fell in love. General surgery was a group of no-nonsense people who identified a problem and fixed it and had a great time doing it. I worked long, long hours, standing in the operating room until my back and knees ached, and and still considered it some of the best times of my life. So yet another detour, actually less of a detour and more like a hard left turn, as I changed my career path and headed into a career in surgery. I ended up in Washington, D.C. to complete a 6-year surgery residency and have been plodding away since 2007, but not without a few additional detours. First, I had a son, a charming and energetic boy named Grant, who has been keeping me on my toes for the last 2.5 years. He provides me and my husband with a lot of entertainment and a fair amount of frustration, but he is worth every ounce of energy and emotion. As a working mom, I spend close to 80 hours each week in the hospital. I worried that I would be too tired to have a child at this point in my career, but in fact, it is just the opposite. He is the best detour I've ever taken, and I look forward to the arrival of another detour in September. The year I had Grant, I decided to take some time away from residency to get a hang of this whole parenting thing. I took a job with much better hours, doing critical care research with some wonderful people. I enrolled patients in studies, drew blood samples, analyzed data, wrote a few papers. I had the opportunity to present some of my research in Belgium at a prestigious international conference. It was a well-spent year which yielded yet another detour. I loved my time in the ICU so much that I took an additional year away from surgery and completed my critical care fellowship. I spent the year learning how to take care of the sickest of the sick, and despite the hours and the stress, I absolutely loved it. My ultimate career will combine surgery and ICU care, similar to some of the amazing physicians who have been profiled recently for their care of the victims of the Boston bombing. I still have 2 years left in my training, and to be quite honest, their learning will continue for the rest of my career, as medicine, specifically surgery, is a constantly changing field. And I like that, the constant challenge, the necessity to work with others to accomplish our goals, and the gratification of improving my patients' quality of life. If it weren't for all these detours that I've taken over the years, I'd be done with my training by now. I'd be making the big bucks and calling the shots. But I still wouldn't change the slightly less conventional path that I have taken. I have learned so many lessons about myself and others. These detours have made me a more independent, confident, and caring person. My time at Garrison laid the foundation upon which all of my other life experiences have been built. And it gave me the curiosity and desire to pursue not necessarily the easiest path, but the most enriching one. You will leave Garrison with all sorts of amazing book knowledge. Classic novels, Latin, US history, biology, physics, the list goes on and on. You will learn how to write an analytical paper, do algebra, analyze current events. And these skills will serve you for the rest of your life. But the true gifts of a Garrison education are much less easy to quantify. It is the self-confidence to raise your hand in a large university lecture hall and give your opinion. It is the compassion to wake up early on your Saturday morning to volunteer with local organizations while all of your other college buddies are asleep after a long night out. It's the curiosity to pick up a new language in your junior year of college because it's something you've always wanted to do, even though you know it's going to be a lot of work. It is these more subtle things, these small examples of your unwavering character that make you a true Garrison girl. You will return to your 5th, 10th, 20th, and 50th reunions to find that you had spent your high school years with a group of women who went out and did amazing things, made a difference in people's lives, achieved greatness, and had a fabulous time doing it. And it is not just a coincidence that we find ourselves surrounded by such successful women. It is largely due to the time we spend here on this beautiful campus. I'm not quite sure what it is about this place, how our teachers manage to instill in us these special gifts. Is it in the water? Or some sort of subliminal message in our textbooks? I think it's most likely the combination of so many things. The safe, picturesque surroundings, the enthusiastic and devoted teachers and coaches, the myriad of technical and educational resources, and of course, the support of great friends. Whatever it is, I have come to realize over the years that I am so lucky to have been a part of it. The confidence and character that you begin to develop here at Garrison continue to grow as you venture out on your own journey. Some of you may know exactly where you are headed. Others may have no idea what lies ahead. Either way, I hope for all of you that your journey is full of detours, some that you will choose and others that will be chosen for you. I hope that your journey takes you to big cities and small villages, to lands of riches and dirt-floored huts. I hope you meet people who teach you about their lives and cultures, and in turn, help you better define who you are. And as your journey progresses, I hope that you can look back and recognize how lucky you are to have had your journey start here with these wonderful friends. Thank you for the opportunity to come back and visit Garrison today, and I have truly enjoyed being here in this special place with all of you.